The Sethmar Story. Thanks for joining us again. Our conversation this week is with Dan Hellman, Chief Sales Officer with Hubtek.
Thanks for joining. This is Ben Bolin, and this is another episode of the Sethmar Story. Today here with me is Dan Hellman from Hubtek. Hey, Dan.
Hey, Ben.
How are you?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming. So Dan, for those who don't know Hubtek, can you give us just kind of a brief introduction of what you guys do? I know there's two main sides of your business, right? And if you can just kind of touch on both of those, and we'll start throwing questions your way.
Yeah. So I'm the Chief Sales Officer over here at Hubtek. Been with about 2 years. Before coming on board, it's been about 14 years on the brokerage side. So Hubtek, we have two main offerings. There's a third one that a lot of people aren't quite aware of. So the first one is our automation technology, automating rate quoting, load building, back office processes, doing real-time rating. The second offering is our nearshore staffing. So we primarily operate out of Colombia and Ecuador. We are expanding throughout Latin America. And then the third offering that many don't know about or may not be aware of is our product called ProfitQuest. It's a training platform and LMS. It already has about 36 hours of content, quizzes preloaded up there, specializing just the logistics industry.
Okay. Well, yeah. Can you kind of touch on ProfitQuest a little bit? How's that going? Is it catching on? Are you seeing a lot of interest in that?
Yeah, no, we are seeing a lot of interest. It's really a great product. One, back when I was on the broker side, training new hires is one of the hardest things, mainly because you're so busy. Typically, companies rely on shadowing. So one class is trained perfectly, the next class is trained horribly because you happen to be really busy. So it gives that standard foundation of their education level. And we've recently entered into a partnership with the LTNA and also Troops to Logistics. It's where members of the LTNA can get a discount on the cost of ProfitQuest, and we'll also make an additional donation for everyone we sell to Troops Logistics, which are that organization's focused on helping basically military personnel to be trained up and enter the logistics field to help with job placement.
Okay, that's great. That's awesome. With that particular product, do you see small, medium brokerages more so obviously than probably the larger ones that have their own training firm, or is it kind of a mixed bag?
It's really a mixed bag. A majority of our customers on it are those mid-sized brokerages. We do have some much larger brokerages on it to supplement their training, or they're trying to get their training off the ground. What's great about the program is that you can customize it yourself. So we have our content, our quizzes, but then you can add your own Sethmar twist to it, make it part of your onboarding where you actually have your employee handbook, they have the e-sign, so it kind of creates that consistent, repeatable process.
Okay, that's great. And then did Hubtek start with the nearshoring component, and then kind of add on the technology and now the ProfitQuest piece on that?
So we started first with nearshoring while we were developing the technology behind the scenes. So Hubtek's been in business for about 4 years now. Our automation, we've historically always been doing customized work, and now we turn it more productize it, where it's a lot more plug and play. And so we've led with the staffing first, just because how much work and all the time spent behind the scenes to develop the technology. ProfitQuest is a newer product, although we've been doing it probably the longest. One of our founders, Joel McGinley, he originally ran Trans Strategy Partners as a consultant for the industry. And so he's been doing that for 20 some years. So it's the same methodology and content that he's used. We've just now turned into a format that is more digestible for the masses, and that you can then customize yourself.
Sure. Okay. And did you guys start the nearshoring portion in Colombia? Was that your first place, and kind of branching out from there, or and kind of how did you land on Colombia? A lot of the nearshoring, as far as the transportation world that I see, Colombia seems to be a big hub. I'm just kind of curious why Colombia.
Yeah, so we did start in Colombia. So our other founder, Ricky Gonzalez, is Colombian. And so he originally owned a freight forwarding company that he operated solely out of Colombia. And so how it kind of came together was that he was looking to sell that company. He hired Joel to be the consultant to help with that. And so when Joel came down to Colombia, saw his operations, he's like, I have a lot of customers. I would love to have this. And so that's kind of where Hubtek, how we came together.
Sure.
Colombia is a hotspot, not just in logistics, but for BPOs, for any industry out there. And it's primarily because the cost of living is low compared to the US, high level of education, high level of English fluency, culturally extremely similar. We watch the same TV shows, same music, same clothes, and also just way time zones works really well. And so we decided to then expand to Ecuador just for more stability, more talent. And that's why we're going to continue to expand. It's just the not just our industry, but the workplace right now. It's a global economy, and there's amazing talent out there that companies can capture.
Sure. Any plans to expand to say Eastern Europe? Anything like that? I know there's a lot of companies. I know when the Ukraine war started happening, I know like Landstar was massively affected from that. And I know there's a lot of I don't know if it's more on the asset side, but I hear a lot of it. There's a lot in Eastern Europe.
There is. We've definitely discussed it. I would say it's not in our immediate roadmap. We really want to focus heavily on Latin America, part for the cultural similarities, time zone, it's daytime shifts, and there's just some really, really strong, great talent there. But with what we saw in Ukraine, that's another push for us to spread out, diversify, because you just never know what could happen in the world. That was Prime showed us of how one place could seem stable and who knows what's going to happen.
Sure. And you guys are helping us out with some Mexico, some people in Mexico. Why is Mexico not more of a popular spot, especially for American companies, being just proximity wise? Is it some of the things you mentioned about Colombia, culture, education, English proficiency, those sorts of things?
Yeah, no, it definitely is, and that's also why we're working together in Mexico, because there's great talent, great level of education. I think it's not that Colombia is necessarily a better fit for logistics. It's kind of like just the first one that grabbed a strong foothold, because you're also seeing other companies there throughout Mexico. So Mexico is a common place for BPOs. Ecuador, not as common. And that's one reason why we want to, establish there, because the people we are bringing on may not have exact logistics brokerage experience, but it's a major port city. And so they're getting that international experience. And so we can kind of tap into that. And so that's also what we're looking at.
Okay, makes sense. I wanted to touch on where we're talking about location, and we can jump into some other things. But I've heard a lot of people tried the Philippines to varying amounts of success. I would say the most of what I've heard has been generally negative. I've heard some positive, but generally it's been difficult. I shouldn't say negative, difficult. Do you have any kind of insight on what that is? My initial one is that it's on the other side of the earth, and it's their night shift, which is difficult. Night hours are obviously not the most preferred by most people. So that's kind of a big hurdle.
Yeah. And I do know of a lot of companies that have teams out in the Philippines, and some are having great success. Some are struggling. And I think it is also because of the company of how they're embracing the team there as part of the culture. And when it's primarily night shift, that's kind of a hard thing to do. Because as far as Philippines is very low cost of living, very well educated. So all those things do check. It's culturally just a little more different.
Sure.
And I think overall, the industry, drivers, shippers, receivers. There is a lot of strength, and there's a lot of upside to having support staff that can also then speak Spanish, just because there are so many Hispanic people throughout the industry that can communicate better, speaking Spanish.
Okay, well, that's great. Let's jump over to Tabby a little bit. This is something we use. We really like. I think it's been great for us. We're working on kind of expanding our use of it, and it's the only problem we have is getting people to embrace technology. Individual reps, we leave it up to them. It's their business. It's their. It's hard to take your hands off, right? And say, I'm going to let this, bot bid my loads. And it's kind of unnerving for some people. But it's been great for us. Can you kind of tell us, what you're seeing as far as success rates and those sorts of things, and kind of the adaption when companies do roll it out, and are they jumping in with both feet, or kind of like us, it's dipping a toe and maybe another, and kind of next thing you know, you got both feet in?
Yeah. So typically companies start with just dipping their toe in. They start with automating the rate quoting for one of their shippers, maybe two of their shippers, let it run for a couple months, and then naturally they just start adding more because they are getting success. And that's a common hurdle that a lot of companies have, is getting that adoption. And that's where we kind of tailored our onboarding process to work directly with the reps that are using it themselves, and not just on that corporate level. So we can help educate them and show them that it really is replicating their exact knowledge, and that they can capture that knowledge. And the upside is they now have free time, because, like it or not, they aren't quoting everything they should be. No one can. It just takes too much time. And so now they can really do less and make more money. Now, that takes time to get that comfort level there. Some of the success stories we have, I was actually just looking through some data earlier this morning, is, one of our customers, they're about $85, $90 million brokerage roughly. They won over $500,000 in freight this month alone, completely touchless. Didn't quote out a single shipment that Tabby's running, and they won $500,000.
That's great. And just the sheer amount of quotes that a lot of our reps deal with. I mean, it's a big time constraint. And I think a lot of companies have a policy of, hey, we need 3 to 5 quotes, whatever it is, especially with freight being such a big percentage of, it's a bigger cost now than it ever has been. And so everyone wants to make sure that they're not overpaying. So, we have, especially some of the newer reps are quoting just to, unfortunately, make sure that some of our hopeful potential customers are not, aren't getting a bad deal. But it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time out of their day. And I think this is something that's great. And it's given a lot of our reps a big portion of their day back, which is great.
Definitely. And then that's also like we kind of bring up like new people, and quoting's a hard thing to train, because there's like so many different nuances you have to capture. And so then you have new people that are either under quoting, over quoting, putting way too much emotion in quoting. Because, if you quote the same lane 20 times, you got burned twice, you're only going to remember those 2 times you got burned, and not the 8 other times that you made significantly more than you thought you were going to. Yeah. So kind of doing more data-driven decisions, not relying on emotion.
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, you got burnt because you took a load on a holiday weekend. A 400-mile run on a holiday weekend Friday. Picking up Friday. It's obviously different on a Tuesday when there's no holiday. So no, I've experienced that myself, and so I think most reps have. How's the Tabby integration going with E2 Open? I think this is something that's very new. We're just dipping our toe in it, but I love the concept. I think it's going to be a great thing for us. How's that going? Are people pretty receptive to that?
It's going really, really well. So we formalized a partnership with E2 Open. So we're now providing real-time rating on the E2 Open platform, in addition to like the spot board. And so how it kind of pretty much works is shippers will go to contract freight first, then what's not covered will go to real-time rating, and then go to the spot. And so our customers are essentially bidding on freight before the competition even knows there's freight there. It's still in the early stages with the shippers. There's 77 shippers on E2Open that are embracing real-time rating, and it's growing. Probably in 6-9 months, it's going to be commodity and it's going to be a requirement to work with those large shippers because it's really grabbing the foothold. But the advantage is it's significant. So to put it in perspective, in the last 3 months, there have been 125,000 quotes that have been bid on the real-time rating market before it hit the spot board.
Wow.
And it's just right now a smaller group of carriers that are doing real-time rating. And so from those 125,000 on average, there's a 17% win rate. And so there's been $11 million of freight awarded every single month in the real-time market before it hits spot boards, before your competition even knows there's freight to bid on.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
I'd take that $11 million every month.
Any day.
Right.
I mean, companies are willing to scale, like quote more. I mean, basically just quote more. Yeah. And this is one of the ways to scale and hit those numbers.
Well, that's great. No, that speaking of, and I don't mean to jump around a little bit, but speaking of kind of the hesitancy to jump in with both feet, I can, going back to the nearshoring, I know I had a problem when we first went down that road. Is how do you stop or ensure that the data that you're sharing with someone in a foreign country who's sitting in a room with other people, that data is not walking around that office? That was honestly, we probably would have done it sooner if I had someone really put that in perspective for me. But that was always the non-starter for me.
Yeah, and that's a common fear. I had the exact same fear when I was in the broker side, my previous brokerage I was running when we started nearshoring, because your data, your customer information, like that's your livelihood. And what kind of opened my eyes is, yes, we have the contracts in place to protect you. We have the contracts with individual employees, all of that. But what even insulates that risk even more than just the contracts is the ability or the chance for your data to get out there is less than it is with your U.S.-based employees right now. Because you think you have, let's say, Sethmar, you guys have employees spread all over the country. Each sales rep or broker is incentivized. If he were to leave and take that information, it's a financial gain to him or her. So he actually has a financial incentive to take that information, and there's a brokerage, and if you're in Chicago, in every city block, it seems like.
Sure.
Where in Colombia, it's not a Colombian industry. It's a U.S. based industry, and so our employees that are supporting U.S. companies, we don't allow them to jump from one company to the next, and so they don't have that incentive. There's no financial incentive for them to even take information, even if they could, which we have the contracts in place, so they can't. But just by sheer not having that ability to necessarily make more information, make more money with that information, it helps eliminate that as well.
Yeah. No, after I got over that initially, it's been great. It's been great for us. It's been a boon to our business, and I don't have that fear at all anymore. Mm-hmm. Just from these people are like family, just like anyone else, right? And we have some really, really strong relationships, and that all goes away just once you get to know who you're working with. So it's been great.
Yeah, and that's kudos to you guys, because the difference between a successful engagement and one that possibly could struggle is how you embrace those employees. You really treat it like a satellite office. Treat it like W-2 employees. If you do that and build that culture, it's gonna go really well.
Yeah. And speaking of that, why don't you tell me a little bit about kind of how you guys go about it? It's some of the intricacies for me were a little hard to grasp, just because it's a foreign country. The currency's different. Everything's different. Everything But I know you guys do a good job of just kind of breaking it down and saying, here's what it is, here's how it works. We'll handle everything else. It was a very turnkey, easy thing for us.
Yeah. One thing that we really want to push is that operationally they are your employees. And so how do we do that? We want to support you as much as possible with having additional on-site management to help with that. But to really embrace that they are your employees operationally, obviously on paper they're ours, is that we have, transparent pricing. We break down so you know exactly what their salary is, what their benefits are, what their 401k contribution is, how much the office space costs, how much our profit margin is. When we made that decision, people were first initially nervous, like opening the book kind of makes you worried, as when I was on the brokerage side, it'd make me worry too. But it helps further that relationship so you can make a hiring decision if it's a W-2 employee. You have two candidates, one's a rock star. Is it worth an extra $100 a month because they have a higher salary requirement? It also helps further our relationship with our customers because it eliminates the advantage that we have to place the cheapest person possible with you to maximize our margin. And so we're the open book with you, so we can give you the best quality of candidates as possible.
That's great. Dan, I really appreciate all your time today, and I thank you for, like I said, you guys have been a great partner for us. Looking forward to continuing to work together, and like I said, I really appreciate you coming on, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. You guys have been, everyone in your organization has been great to work with from our side. So really excited for the future.
Hey, thank you.
Thanks.